Welcome everybody to IKONICAL Wear. Let me get this thing off of the screen. This always happens, especially with this logo. So this is something that I don't know why it happens. It does happen from time to time though. Bouncing from screen to screen, it happens. So welcome to IKONICAL Wear. It's your boy Dirty here with another great episode coming your way. Heads up to everybody. In March, there will be a 40% off March Madness sale on all clothing, on all apparel. So be ready for that. I have a lot of orders already to give out and to get ready to get shipped out. So just a heads up on that. But today, we want to go over some sponsors. So go to norse-hall.com if you guys want. That was the actual logo that was right there in front of my face. So this one, I should not be there, so I might as well have some fun with that. But Norse-Hall, we'll put it right there in the top corner. Norse-hall.com is a sponsor of the show. If you guys want some honey mead, so some honey wine, which is mead, M-E-A-D. Some people don't understand what mead is, and mead is a old honey wine that was made back in the day. And let me tell you, you could really get a little sauce off of that. Speaking of sauce, they actually have their own hot sauce as well. This is all based out of West Virginia. So if you guys want some of your best hot sauce that you've ever had, one of them is called the Couch Burner, which they do before college football games. And if you guys want some mead on the side, you guys can order some awesome honey wine. So go to norse-hall.com to get your order in now. And also, please go to tinydogcoffee.com, which they have. I couldn't tell you how many different flavors, but I wasn't a big coffee drinker, but now I certainly am a coffee drinker from time to time. They have some very interesting flavors. It's probably changed by now, but it always changes during the season. So go to tinydogcoffee.com to get your batch in today. But today we are actually going to bring on somebody. I've been wanting to speak with this person. I dropped the ball last time as an interviewer, probably not the smartest thing to admit, but I dropped the ball last time. I had way too much of a busy schedule, and I allowed that to get a hold of my life. And that's kind of the point of sometimes where we need to discuss things and slow things down in this lifetime and in this world. Because mental health is a big thing. Your physical health is also a very, very big thing. And sometimes you do not want those things to be able to, I don't want to say ruin your life, but control your life. Because once you do it once, you'll, becomes a snowball effect, and things just start coming, downhill. So who I am having on the podcast today is Emma Voysey. And she is a health coach who focuses on effective fat loss strategies for individuals over 50. She emphasizes the importance of protein intake and constant movement and intermittent fasting to improve health without extreme diets. Her approaches include stabilizing blood sugar levels, and prioritizing sleep, simplifying life, building muscle, and positive talk and mindset shifts for long-term success in health and fitness goals. So Emma's strategies aim to enhance physical and mental well-being and help individuals feel stronger, energized, and in control of their own bodies. And without further ado, I would like to bring her on. Emma Voysey, how are you today?
Hi, I'm very well, thank you. Can I just say it's not constant movement? Gosh, heaven forbid, consistent movement.
Consistent movement. Let's see.
I don't want to make people think I'm like a marathon trainer or Ironman fan.
Yeah, you cannot sit down. Okay, you are not allowed to. There are no breaks here.
Consistent things you can do consistently and sustainably.
I think it's a big thing. There's way too much of I don't want to say laziness, but there is a sense of blah.
Yeah,
I guess that's the best way to say it.
Well, yeah, but then people don't feed themselves properly, so they don't have any energy because they just don't eat any real food. So there's that. That's the base of everything, is just eat real food.
Yeah, and I want to get into that maybe a little bit later on down this interview, because that is something that people don't pay attention to because they don't know.
Yeah,
And that's
exactly.
the scary part. I believe it's a very scary part. I'm
Mm.
sure you're researching. I don't, in so many different ways.
Yeah, definitely.
Before we get started, I want people to go to your YouTube page, Emma Voysey Health, on YouTube right now. If you guys can hit the subscribe button. I've been very impressed with.
Please like and subscribe.
Yeah, there's been so many different videos that I've watched. You have a lot of different information on there. I think there's so much to learn. If you guys just watch a video a day, or even binge watch it, or go to her website at emmavoyseyhealth.com/sweet enough. That is also another other way to reach her. But I want you guys to get an idea of who she is as we go through this interview. That way you can put the face to the name and the voice at the same time. So
I love it when people say, "I've just found you and I'm binge watching." Yes, please do. Please binge.
Yeah. So where are you based out of right now?
So I live in Andorra, which is a little tiny principality between France and Spain in the Pyrenees. And my husband and I moved here for nearly 4.5 years ago. He was offered a job with a long-term friend and colleague, and we kind of got rid of the kids and ready for another adventure. So we thought, yeah, well, let's go and have a look. So we had to wait till COVID had finished, and then we could travel again because we were living in the UK. And we came out and we just thought, wow, what a great country. And yeah, it was like a really easy decision to come and live here. It's a beautiful place. And we're very, very glad we did that.
So first time living in this kind of area?
No, we've lived in France, both the north and the south of France before. We lived in the Middle East for 6 years as a family in the 90s. Simon's always been in investment, and I've just, we've moved to different places. When the children were small, our eldest is now 34 and our youngest is 24, nearly 24. So, we're now free again of children and having to do everything with the kids. But yeah, and I lived in the States for nearly a year when I was 19 as well. So yeah, been around the place. But yeah, we really enjoy living in different places. We're absolutely not people that just kind of, some people just, they're born, they're raised, they stay in that one space. That was never us. So we've moved around a bit.
Whereabouts were you when you were in the States?
Not far from you, if you're near West Virginia. Maryland, first of all, and then Virginia.
So you're even closer, because I'm in New York.
Oh, okay. So I started in DC and I lived in Maryland, and then I lived in Virginia.
Okay.
And I nannied and I worked in an Irish restaurant and bar, and I had a great time. It was a really amazing experience.
Well, now you have my undivided attention, because that's the roots of our family is Irish and Scottish.
Okay. Yeah. So yes, I used to have people coming the bar was called Ireland Zone, and it was in Alexandria in Virginia. And I used to have people, Americans, always saying to me, "So which part of Ireland are you from?" Which was really, really amused me. But in the end, I just used to make something up, because they obviously didn't tell any difference between my accent and the Irish girls that worked there. But it was around that time they were issuing the Donnelly visas. This is in 1989, and they all got them. Those Irish girls I worked with, I wasn't planning to stay. I was always planning to go back to the UK. And all the Irish girls that I worked with all got their visas, and some of them are still out there in the States. They made it their permanent home.
Yeah, we're not the smartest bunch over on this side. If we just hear an accent, we just know it's not American, and everybody's probably from the same place. Unfortunately, that's how some people.
Well, it's such an enormous country. There's no need to go outside of your country, because you have all the climates, all the terrain, it's just gigantic, isn't it? It's like many, many countries in one huge continent. So yeah, you can see why many Americans never get outside America, and that's fine, because there's so much going on there, so much to see in your one country. I'd love to drive across one day. I've always fancied driving from one side to the other.
That's something I haven't done either. And because it will take, I believe it's around 3 days ish or 4 days ish to get from, I'll say East Coast to West Coast or New York to California.
Well, that doesn't seem too long. I mean, it takes us nearly 2 days to drive up to France. So, yeah.
Okay.
So that's not as far as I thought. But
No, it's
yeah,
not. It's not too bad. It's I think it's the in betweens, right? So you have the mountains at some point right here, and then down below you do have the Midwest section, but then all of
yeah,
a sudden you'll just run into desert,
yeah,
you know, and it's like, well, you better be prepared too, because but
yeah,
from yeah, you got Canada right, right above us, which is a little bit cooler at times, but then all of a sudden you have South America, which is closer to the equator. It's going to be that hot and heavy and
yeah,
sticky, and it is a very odd concept to know that exactly what you said. We have pretty much everything that we
yeah,
would need, top to bottom.
yeah. Just all in the one country.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so it's always quite amusing when you meet Americans and they say, "Oh, where are you from?" And then they say, "Oh, I knew someone from Birmingham. Do you know them?"
Yeah.
Every British person has that experience of an American asking them that question at some point.
There was
Man,
a there was a
nervous. I don't
time.
know everybody.
No,
Sorry.
yeah. Sorry, I'm not the mayor. I don't. I'm not the president. There was a when I went to Ireland in 2004, and how old was I? 18 at that time.
Yeah,
And I went in, and the bartender, me and my brother were in a bar, and the bartender started speaking, and he started mentioning a place, and sure enough, it was only a few towns over from where we lived.
yeah.
And my brother looked at me and he's like, that's where, it's close to where Dad works. I was like, no, it's not. So he gave him a ring. Hey, where? Oh yeah, that's the bar I go to all the time. Blah 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 blah. I know the owner, and the owner was the bartender's brother.
No,
So it's
that's
yeah,
a weird small world thing, isn't it?
yeah. It
Yeah.
happens from time to time, but not often. Not often. Not at
No.
all. So you came into the United States at around, you said around 19, right?
Yeah, I was 19 and I turned 20, and then I went back to the UK at the end of the school year. So in the summer after I was like 20 and a half. But yeah, it was a great experience. But I've been
What
back a few times, but never lived there since then.
I don't blame you. There's a lot of weird things that happen here. Before then, what was your childhood like? What did that look like for you? Where did you start off? Where were your parents from? Because I want to get a little bit of an idea of who you are. We are taking kind of a backwards trend, and that's fine. But
Okay.
before 19, where did you come from? What country were you
So,
in?
I was born in London. My parents moved out to the countryside, an hour or so's drive outside of London when I was 4. And they said that when we moved out to the countryside, we would be able to have a horse. That was my thing since can remember. I wanted to have a pony. I was so into horses and ponies. And finally, when I was nearly 8, they bought a pony, but they bought a pony that was big enough that they could both ride it too. So this pony just used to tank off across the countryside with me, and yes, it was a bit of a baptism by fire, learning to ride as a child in Bedfordshire, which is where I grew up. Yeah, and then they got more horses. They got another horse so they could ride together, and then they'd go off for these long rides, and I'd just be like left at home babysitting for my brother. And my mum wasn't really into cooking, so there was never anything much to eat, and it would be the weekend. And I remember looking in the deep freezer one day, and I had a recipe book, and just thinking, well, maybe I can make something for lunch. And I found some meat, and I looked at this recipe, and I made a beef stew, and they came back to beef stew and dumplings. And I think I must have been 8 or 9. Anyway, I just loved cooking. I always loved food and cooking. My mum never seemed, she never bought biscuits or cakes or cookies or anything. So I just used to make all those things. So I always had a fascination with food, and always grew up thinking I wanted to be a chef. But I then went to catering college to train as a chef, and realized very quickly it wasn't at all what I had in mind. But I'd also done food and nutrition in school, at my senior year in school. And I was just fascinated by food, nutrition, and the science of it, but I just wasn't sciencey. So I couldn't go to university and do that because I just didn't have the necessary qualifications to do that. So I worked with food. I was always interested in food and eating well, and health, but always with an angle on weight control. I just wanted to know what I could eat and not get fat, because when I was a teenager, made all those cakes and things, I started to put weight on, and this is in the 80s when it was the big push for low fat and calories and controlling your weight like that. And I just hated the whole thing. I just thought counting calories was awful. Never felt comfortable doing that. It just didn't seem like the right thing to do. So my whole life has been a quest from that age onwards to find the way to eat optimally and not get fat and not put weight on, but be healthy. And it's just, that's been my journey that eventually, I mean, I did lots of other things in the meantime, but eventually brought me to retraining to become a health coach. Once we were here in Andorra, because I didn't know what else to do. I'd left a really successful furniture restoration business behind in the UK, and it didn't translate. I couldn't bring that here. You can't find mid-century furniture here like you could in the UK. And that had been my business for quite a few years. And I built that from nothing, and then came to Andorra, and it's like, right, what am I going to do now? Health coaching. Well, this is a thing. You can actually train, and then you can advise people on health. So since that was always my biggest passion, was health and how to be healthy. And as I've got older, it's been more and more about not just about weight loss, but about health, just how to stay healthy, how to not just kind of walk into sickness, and just accept it, and to accept that, what everybody else does, which is just go to the doctor and take some pills. And I never did that. I never thought that was a good idea ever. So it was, marrying all those things up, and then qualifying as a health coach, and then sitting there, and it's like, right, now I'm a health coach. Where am I going to find some clients? And that's when I started the YouTube channel, because I thought, well, I'll just start making videos about health, about the things I know, about fermenting vegetables and making yogurt, and how to exercise without being crazy about it, and how to eat sustainably, and how to eat the right stuff and feel like you get enough to eat without ever counting calories or starving yourself. So yeah, that's kind of the journey.
Yeah.
a very potted history.
No, but I mean, was there anybody in your family that was, you're saying at eight, you were just like, well, since they lied to me, and they took my horse, and you're sitting there in the kitchen, well, you're figuring out a way, right? You're figuring out a way to cook something. You're like, I might as well do this while I'm waiting, right? Was there anybody in your family that was interested in cooking, beside, maybe a distant relative or something like that took that interest?
Nobody was interested. That's why I started doing it, because there was no one. My mum was, she obviously knows how to cook food, but it wasn't her passion at all. It wasn't really of any interest to her. So that's why I started doing it myself. Okay. She showed me her recipe book, and she showed me how to cook, basic cakes. Everybody liked eating them. My brother and my mum and dad liked eating all the stuff I made, but she wasn't that bothered about it. So that's where I started, doing it myself. They do say that it's kind of skips a generation. So if you've got a grandmother who likes cooking, often it'll be that the grandmother cooks, and then the mother doesn't cook, and then the children cook because the mum didn't cook. So I think, my grandparents both cooked, my grannies both cooked, but they didn't teach me. I just taught myself. I was just always interested, and it wasn't difficult to do. So I just got, more and more better and better at it with practice, I suppose.
I could see that. Yeah, I could definitely see that. And it's almost like the twin effect, right? Like, there's a twin in the family. It skips a generation. I was actually a twin at one point. That my mother had lost she had a miscarriage, unfortunately, with the other twin, but her father was a twin. Yeah. So it's like it goes through. So there was none in between, and then I came, and then I don't know how far back it went, but I'm starting to realize a pattern with those kind of things. So one of my friends.
Do you have children yourself?
I do not. No.
So you could be you could be the next, you could produce the next twins in your family.
This
When
is
you
possible.
do that.
I don't. Yeah. See, I don't know what happened. Like, so since the other one didn't come through with me, does that, skip or does
Yeah.
it not skip? I don't know. Right.
No, I don't know. I had a horse once who I bred a foal, and the vet said, "Oh, she's got twins, so we're gonna." And I said, "Oh, great, we'll have two horses." And he said, "No, it doesn't. It's not very good for horses to have twins. Their legs get tangled up, and they might not be straight. And the whole thing with the horses, it's got to be really straight, and everything's got to be exactly." So he pinched one out. So I said, "Well, how do you know you've pinched the right one out?"
Right. Yeah.
I don't know, but he pinched one out, and the other one was born, and she was amazing. She was the most amazing horse I ever had. She was with me for 19 years. I had her from the day she was born, and I did everything myself, and she was fantastic. So
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's great. That's awesome.
She was just a brilliant mare. But yeah, horses. I think, with sheep and cattle, it doesn't matter because they're generally just for eating. But with horses, they've got to be straight. So you don't want twins. You don't want them small. You don't want them to not grow to capacity. You want them to be the right size, and their legs all be perfectly as they should be.
You don't want all sea biscuits, right?
Yeah.
You want them bigger.
Yeah.
So how many horses did you have growing up? Like, so obviously there was that one, and then
Sonny, he was my first one, my first pony.
Okay.
And then I had a second pony, and then I got to being a teenager, and I'd lost interest in horses for a while, and I rode a lot other people's horses through my 20s. And when we finally moved back from the Middle East to England when I was 30, then I started collecting more horses. So then at one point I had about 8 horses, and Simon was still working in Qatar and in Dubai, and he came back and said, "Why do you need all these horses?" Well, that one's having a foal, that one's growing up, so she's not ready yet. That one's then we got a couple of ponies for the children. We had the girls by that time, and they were both riding, and so we ended up with 8, and that was a lot of work.
Like, why do you have all these horses? Let me tell you, I got a reason for every one of them.
Oh gosh, yeah. But yeah, eventually I just ended up with one horse, and then when we came to Andorra, I said, "Well, obviously I'm going to take my horse with me." And Simon was like, "Yeah, obviously." So we came out here with one horse, but she lived just over the border in Spain. She did live in Andorra for a bit, but it just isn't a great place here to have a horse. I was into dressage. I'd stopped eventing, which is where you do jumping, cross country, and show jumping and dressage as a combined event. I'd stopped doing the jumping stuff, but I was still doing the dressage. And there's no competitions here. You got to travel hundreds of miles to find a competition, and it was just the travel time of driving 45 minutes down to where my horse lived, and then riding, and then driving back, getting stuck in the ski traffic because it's a ski resort. So there's often, you hit the traffic at the wrong time. It just wasn't practical. And so last spring, I found a fantastic home for my last horse, Candy, she was called. And she's gone to live in Spain, and she's having her first foal in a couple of months' time. So I'm really looking forward to going and visiting her with her new baby. She's just a broodmare. She's just going to have foals, which is fantastic because she was a very spooky, nervous horse, and not the easiest. And I didn't want someone to have her and not understand her and then mistreat her. And it was just a perfect home for her with a friend of someone who she'd known this guy for 20 years. My friend from here, known the guy for 20 years, knew he would give her a good home. And I practically gave her away to him, but I know she's safe and she's living her best life. So
I mean, I think that's half the battle, though, because when you have, essentially it's part of the family. It's not.
Oh my gosh, yeah. You think of it like all of your animals. They like children, aren't they?
Yeah.
And if they're not, then
why have them?
Right reasons.
yeah. Like they're a part of the family, and it's one of those things where you want to make sure that they're safe, and their journey is your journey. So you're excited that I'll say one of your children are having children. And that's the way you want to look at it. That's how you have to look at it.
Yeah.
That's great, though. That's awesome.
I was so into natural horsemanship, the horse being in its most natural environment, living the life closest to the way the horse would choose to live. And it was really important to me that she went to the right place. So yeah, I was very lucky to find a great home for her. And I don't miss it, actually. I've just turned 57. I'm pretty happy that I'm not being flung off my horse at regular intervals these days. I've got a lot of injuries that I've had, in the past. They've all been horse related. All the bits and pieces that you broke or twisted or smashed, it's all horse related. They're very dangerous.
What's one of the best few memories that you remember, either riding or having the horse, that just kind of brought you joy?
Oh my gosh, so many of them. So many.
Yeah.
I just in England, there's such a culture for riding and riding for pleasure. Just fun rides, cross country competitions where you spend the whole weekend at a competition, and you just have so many friends, so many people all doing it with you. It's a brilliant hobby, and people have this idea that you have to be really rich to be able to have a horse. You're obviously rich. No, you're really poor, because all your money goes into horses and into that hobby. It's very expensive. Very different to when I was a kid. When I said to people I had a pony when I was growing up, oh, you must have been. Well, my parents had no money, but we didn't go on holidays like other people. We just had horses. We didn't have our own land. Horses lived in the field behind the house. It was owned by the next door farmer. I think I was very lucky when I look back to what an amazing childhood I had. That, first of all, my parents were both still together. I had a little brother. I lived in the countryside, and I had horses. I had a pony. And I mean, God, I was probably never happier than my parents just let me get on with it. So a bit like the cooking, I could just take my pony and ride off through the countryside, and nobody ever kept tabs on me or asked where I was. So there were no clocks to worry about. You just did what you wanted to do. And yeah, it was a really good way to grow up.
That sounds pretty cool, because it's almost like nobody's stopping you from doing whatever it is that you would like to do, that you want to do. You're gonna try cooking. All right, cool. You're gonna try the horses. You like the horses, good. It's no setbacks.
I was very free range.
There you go.
which is good. That's I think that by the time I had kids, and we had our first daughter when I was 23.
Mhm.
But the world was a different place by that stage. This is in the 90s. Already everyone's things closed down. You couldn't just let your kids go out to play and say come back at dinner time. You had to. It was already different than how it was when I was a child. Growing up in the 70s. So I think I feel really lucky that I had that experience, and that was my growing up was like that. Because nowadays you just don't take your eyes off your children.
Well, you can't. And I would say you can, but you can't, because there's so many. I don't know. There's a lot of weird people out there now, where you have to be very, very careful. But on the other side,
there's so much fear, and you wonder how much of it is just because there's so much fear. Is there really all the bad stuff out there, or do we all just think it's bad? And it's the same with so many other things in life. I mean, I spend my whole time. I'm passionate about health and science and learning. I was not a great student at school, because I just couldn't be bothered, and I wanted to be out on my horse. It just was no interest to me. So it was always the could do better type school reports. And I think I was frustrating to my teachers, because they knew I was capable of it, but I just wasn't that motivated. But I don't have time to watch the news or to keep up with current affairs. I just don't have the time. And I also don't have the desire, because it's so depressing and sad, that I think if I focused on that sad, depressing stuff, that the snippets I do here, I wouldn't be able to get out of bed in the morning. It would be too miserable. Like, what is the point if you immerse yourself in all that misery and all that fear that seems to be whipped up around everything these days? Like all the current affairs, it's all about this is the world's going to hell in a handcart. That's what it feels like. So I just distance myself from that. So if you ask me what's going on in the Middle East or Russia, I don't know. I really couldn't tell you. But if you ask me about mineral balance or the best way to eat sustainably without ever feeling hungry. I can tell you, I can talk to you about that all day, or about, you know, your mitochondria, but I can't tell you what's going on. I don't even know what the name of the Prime Minister is here in Andorra. I'm just completely ignorant of those things because it doesn't interest me.
I am in the same boat as you are. There was something I want to say it was probably 4 or 5 years ago, maybe even more. I started to write a small book, right? I just never went back to it, and I think I'm probably going to revisit it. It's still saved.
Yeah.
I've only gotten maybe like 10 or 12 pages in, but it was really about the way that I see everything. And it starts off with the news. It started off with the news and me jotting down all of the different things, not everything that was mentioned, but just a marker on whether it was negative or if it was positive. And 92% of everything that I had marked down was negative, which means 8% they're shoving it in your face very quickly, but only within a very 7 to 9 second loop so that you can forget about it. And then it's back on to the next bad thing. And it's like, well, if we're programmed to watch this and listen to this, this is affecting our mental health. And it's a big thing that people don't pay attention to, because I'll be honest with you.
News.
I was dating somebody as of recent, and they wanted to talk about, did you hear about blah, 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 blah. And I was like, no. And they're like, well, let's talk. I said, I don't want to talk about that. That does not, you know, somebody's getting shot and killed. I'm okay. I don't want to talk about that. That's not something I want to focus on, because you're going to have an opinion that's going to get you riled up for what?
It's stressful.
And the basis of,
or buried things that you've buried. So we'd maybe bring up other things because you're faced with that bad news. But what's the point? What's the point in focusing on things that make you feel bad? It's just, I realized this when I was doing the furniture restoration, and I'd spend a lot of time with headphones on, ear defenders on, sanding a table or something, and listening to the radio. So that's what I was listening to, and with headphones on. And I just thought, God, it's just, they just put the news on every hour, and every hour they tell me the same thing. Because sometimes I might be standing there working on that table for 6 hours, and I've heard the same news report 6 times. And I just thought, I've had enough of this. So I started listening to podcasts and on Audible, actually. I didn't even, this is back in the 2014 onwards. I didn't really know what podcasts were even, but I found Audible. You could listen to things which were pre-recorded, and I started listening to Ricky Gervais did a podcast for ages, which I just loved Ricky Gervais. So I listened to all of Ricky Gervais's Deadly Series. There were like 50 or 60 episodes, and he'd have guests, and I just thought that was brilliant. And I completely, from then on, just distanced myself and had no idea what was going on with the news, because even down to the weather report is depressing. They just say, and then they whip up fear that there's a rainstorm coming. It's going to be the worst ever rainstorm, and you must all batten down the hatches and don't go outside. It's just raining. We just used to say, oh, it's raining heavily. Now it's a yellow warning or whatever. So I stopped years ago with the news, but then started listening to more educational stuff, and then started listening to YouTube, and it was like, oh, there's this whole world of stuff I can educate myself with out there. And there's so much information, but it's about picking the stuff that's the most positive thing for you. Because people's mental health and what bandwidth you have it's important. It's important not to crowd yourself out with stuff which isn't serving you.
No, it's absolutely important, because if you the more things that you allow in there, the negative thoughts that do seep in there, and everything becomes a habit. 14 to 21 days, it's habit forming, it's habitual. And the more you do that, the more you're going to either grow or decline. There's one or the other. And it's amazing when you do see the people that listen to it, how focused they are. Did you hear about this? Did you hear about that? And it's like, nope, I am completely cut off from that, because I want to be outside. I want to enjoy the sunrise or sunset or the, whatever. I want to see somebody in a way that I meet you. If I meet you in person, If you're a celebrity, I don't want to know what the news says about you. You're a completely new person to me. I've never met you. I want to make sure that I have a clear mind of whomever you may or may not be. It doesn't matter, but I'll form that opinion through my own mind, through my own experience, through my handshake to you, rather than already having a negative input in my own brain based upon what media has said, based upon what. And if they're spreading it at a 92% rate of being negative, that's going to affect your mental health. And not only that, that's going to affect your gut health, and then so on and so forth.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And I think mental
So,
health is
so
one
much
thing that's huge.
about health, about your health. You cannot get to into a state of good health if you're harboring negative thoughts, buried stresses, buried trauma, all of those things. You need to deal with those, and you're not going to help yourself by putting more bad news in. It just doesn't serve you. So yeah, it's in January, actually, I did a decluttering challenge on the YouTube channel, and I said I would do a video every day, and it was a 31-day decluttering challenge. And the idea being, on day one, you get rid of one thing, because everybody can get rid of one thing, and then on day two it's two things, and day three, and so on. But each day I coupled it. Each video I did, they were short videos, like 10-15 minutes, looking at the mental aspect of it as well as the physical aspect of the positive thing of clearing stuff that you don't need away from your environment. And people really got on board with it. And people have, so many people have said to me, I've never been able to throw anything away before. I've never been able to get to the bottom of my junk. I've never been able to deal with it. I always felt too guilty. And it was about addressing the guilt, addressing the space, addressing all of it. Just, from clothes to your kitchen cabinets to everything in your home, because a clear space is a productive space. If you've got, if your desk is clear, you can think more clearly about the things you need to be at your desk to do. And then by the end of the month, increasing the things day by day, by the end of the month, you've got rid of 496 items, which you wouldn't believe, but it's, it compounds. And people did it with me, and hundreds and hundreds of people did it with me. It was just the feedback was incredible. And I've had clients join me because they found me through that challenge and said, I've never been able to do that before, because of how you started small and gradually increased it and kept me focused on it. I've cleared my whole house, or I've cleared my parents' keepsakes that I couldn't get rid of because they had so many memories. And so that was really positive. But it just shows you how it's what's in your physical space, whether that's bad news coming through the TV or through the radio, whatever, or things around you, affects you mentally just so deeply. And people get so stuck and they don't even realize they're stuck.
Yeah, it affects your sleep, and it definitely does. Yeah. And I say that from experience too, because I was a kind of cluttered in my mind, so I was cluttered on the outside, or I was already cluttered on the outside, so I'm cluttered in my mind, and it's one or the other, right? So but once you start to ship-shape things, all of a sudden there's this sense of relief, there's this sense of clarity, and there's this sense of sleeping better as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And that, I think,
so foundational.
Yeah.
You could say, well, no, the hormones are the basis of everything, or enzymes, or minerals, or it's about what you eat. But it's sleep. Sleep underpins all of that, because without the sleep, nothing else is going to work. So it's
the Genuine Wellness. She was the last interview that I had. She discusses about frequencies and how the frequencies really help her to sleep too. And she's already ADHD, and she was like, my son is also, she said, I always ask, do you want to listen to music or do you want to listen to frequencies? And she says her son always says, I want to listen to the alien music. And but she's like, he could put together an entire Lego set of whatever, and he's focused, and depending on what kind of frequency I put on, and she's like, and sometimes they're if they need to go to bed early or something, I'll put on this frequency and they're out like a light.
Wow.
And She says the same with me. She's like, I'm always go, 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 go. But then I would wake up at nighttime, and the frequency, depending on what it is, I just let it play.
Yeah.
And I would have the deepest sleep according also to the metrics on the phone that, all these phones have different things now, that I was in a very, very deep sleep ever since I've been doing this. So there's a difference.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I always turn the phone and the Wi-Fi off at nighttime. And in fact, and the electricity. The last thing we did is switch the electricity off because I just think anything that interferes with you while you're sleeping, you just don't, you don't need to be doing that. And I wear the blue light blocking glasses, and I don't have, we dim the lights after the sun goes down. We don't have artificial lights, and try and reduce the screens or wear blue light blocking glasses because they've proven that it interferes with your sleep. We know it messes up our circadian rhythm. We need to see natural light after waking up. We need to see the sunset in order for our circadian rhythm to regulate itself and to work the way it should do. So
it messes up our melatonin levels as well inside of us. I mean, we discussed this on the last podcast as well, but you're essentially it's not as bright as the sun, but your body doesn't recognize that. It just recognizes it as, hey, this is something that is like the sun. So it's like, hey, it's time to wake up. So now your melatonin levels are all just like, oh, are we supposed to? Oh, we are up right now. Oh, okay. No, no. But then you try to go back to sleep.
Yeah.
And it's not. And really, what's supposed to happen is when that sun comes over that horizon, that's when it's supposed to sink in, and that's when you're supposed to actually go through your eyes so your body can actually receive the vitamin D. And that's, people don't understand that.
Taking it from a pill or a bottle, it's just the wrong stuff.
And you're putting your liver and your kidneys through so much.
I know.
Every time you take a pill,
Yeah, but there's so much do we say propaganda, or do we say information out there telling us what we need to do? And so much of it's inaccurate, and people, because they've heard it for so long. Somebody sent me a message this morning. It was about sunlight, and she said, what vitamin D supplement do you recommend? Because we don't get a lot of light in the winter, and in the summer it's dangerous. And I'm just like, oh my God. And I had to give her quite a long paragraph to say, honestly, the sun isn't dangerous. This is just what we've been told, but it's not true. You don't need to go out there and blast yourself in it for hours and hours, but you do need to get it every day. And you can still get enough just when it's a cloudy day, because that's what we've been doing for millennia. That's how we've got this far, that we had natural sunlight. That's how we evolved. So yeah, people love a quick answer that comes out of a bottle. It's no different to, doctor, give me the pills and that'll make me better. They just want to get rid of the symptom and be better. But you don't get better by getting rid of the symptom. That's just like putting a band-aid over everything. So this is my whole ethos, and it always has been. I've always shied away from doctors, because I've always thought, well, I don't want to take the pills. I don't want to do that. That's I don't want all that artificial stuff in my body. And I've been interested in that for decades, since I was, came back from America as a 20-year-old, put on quite a lot of weight working in that restaurant, and was ready to, get healthy again. And I just got right into my health from then onwards. But, you go down a lot of rabbit holes, and meanwhile the internet arrives, and now we're just all presented with so much conflicting information from every source, and you just get it all day long. It's just at you from, if you watch the news, if you read the newspapers. It's very, very misleading.
And if you decide to go into a direction of truth or proving something that is healthier for you, that doesn't go with the agenda of what is being put out, I don't want to say you're canceled, but you're definitely shadow banned. You're definitely put to the backside of the screen that nobody can see your information. And it's like, that kind of goes with the sense of a lot of different areas in life where it's like, well, who controls the traction of how far I go? And why would it be, you notice a pattern of every time there's something healthy being put here, well, how come I'm all the way in the back of the line now? And then when I stopped doing it, I've been testing that on this for a while now on my own personal Instagram of
Yeah.
things that are entertaining, and then things that are, hey, prepare yourself for X, Y, and Z. And it can go from anywhere from 15 to 20 people watching these stories, all the way to 2. Now
Yeah.
that you'd be like, oh, well, that's just conspiracy theory. Well,
Mm.
then if it's conspiracy theory, it shouldn't have a problem. It's wacky, right? It's stupid. So then how come there's only 2 people watching it?
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I do think about that with the material I'm putting out, that I'm probably far too confrontational about certain things. That there's no
Yeah.
money. There's no one's making any money from eating healthy whole foods. So, telling people,
Pharmaceuticals, that's how they make money.
yeah, and so, and also, not just the vitamin and supplement industry is worth so much money. As people are, moving away from pharmaceuticals because they don't want to be unhealthy, they're turning to other things which make lots of money. So, yeah.
So we went through 1 or 2 things, though. We went through like kind of simplifying your life a little, like decluttering, but decluttering food choices and to-do lists
Mm.
for your mental health as well, and your emotional health at the same time. What does that look like for you? What are some of those things where you can declutter not just the stuff in your house, but the food choices you do, and some of the to-do lists that can help you out throughout a day or maybe even a month? Like, what are some of the things that you've learned, I guess, that can help you mentally in those kind of situations?
Um, I keep food choices really simple and try and, as my cooking is as simple and as basic as it can be these days, just using real ingredients. I never eat things out of packets anymore. It's all just meat, fish, eggs, dairy, and some vegetables. I rarely drink alcohol anymore. I used to drink socially, probably certainly through COVID, most days. There's nothing else to do.
I
But
don't
I
think
just
you're alone there.
yeah. But maybe I'll have a couple of glasses of wine once a week now. So the food's really simple. We tend to just eat breakfast and then a mid-afternoon or late afternoon lunch, and that's it. Don't eat after that. So I go to bed on an empty stomach because I sleep better. To-do lists, yeah, I tend to keep a lot of it up here, which doesn't really work that well. It's better to write it down. So I do have my notebook here, and I have studied actually on the day writing a to-do list, and just it's a great sense, isn't it, when you tick something off? It feels really positive that you've ticked things off. So I
It's
find myself
that dopamine.
I put things on that list that, oh, you've done that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my days are designed, or they're sort of around. I'll always eat breakfast, then go for a walk. I have a dog, so he doesn't let me stay in the apartment for any longer than he has to. So we go out on the mountain. If it's a filming day, if I'm filming something for YouTube, I film outside. And Mikey's doing his thing in the background. He's at Jack Russell, and then I've got I also speak with clients through the day on Zoom calls like we're talking now. To-do list, keeping things simple. I just try not to crowd too much into the days. And actually, I learned that from Simon, because I always try and do too much. Old me did way too much all the time. I just pack as much into the time that I possibly can, and I'd get home and I'd still be working all night. And I've just realized that doesn't really serve me. So I try and finish up with the computer completely and turn the phone off by 7 in the evening, so that I'm not looking at screens through the evening. But yeah, then getting to bed at a decent time, being sort of heading off to bed by 9:30. I'm really boring. Life's really, we're not party animals anymore. But yeah, just trying to keep things simple, not and saying no when you don't feel like doing stuff as well. When we first came out here to Andorra, it's a very sociable place. You could be out many times a week if you wanted to. There's lots of expats living here, and it's always the same in any expat community. Lots of people all thrown together from many different backgrounds, many different countries, because there's more expats here than there are Andorrans. So yeah, you could be out every day and every night of the week if you wanted to, but just realizing that it's just too much. It's just better to see people once in a while and just generally live a more quiet life. Yeah, so the morning walk, there's an evening walk which should be coming up shortly before it gets dark, because it's out with the dog again, and just just simplifying from food right through to everything. Just not trying to pack too much in.
I've had that problem as well throughout the past, and it is something that I'll get 2 or 3 things done here rather than 5, 6, 7. And it's always that, well, if I can get all this done, I'll feel better. But in reality, you don't. At the end of the day, you're just tired. Yeah. And then the next day, you'll try to do the same thing because you feel like you just have to conquer the world.
Yeah.
It didn't help anything. It didn't help my sleep. It didn't help. No, none of it.
No, I think
it just burnt me out.
If you're the type of person, if you're entrepreneurial, if you work for yourself, if you've got so much creativity, you know what you can do, you know what you're capable of, and you just try and keep doing it, all of it. But like you say, it really, eventually you crash because you can't keep that up. So you have to try and space things out more, and just, sometimes less is more. Simon, my husband's much better at this than I am. I'm given to me by my parents. I have a real strong work ethic, and I will work and work and work and use it. But I have to make myself take breaks and make myself, as I get older, I can't do that. That's not a good idea. It's not sustainable.
Yeah. Now you talked about going to bed early and on an empty stomach, which is key, because there was something that I've read was a few years ago, and I tried it for about a month or two, and it's difficult to do, especially if you're working a little bit later on your regular job, or it all depends on the person and how their lifestyle is. But it's the 3-2-1, and everybody has their different versions of this, but 3-2-1, 3 hours before you go to bed, you shouldn't be eating anything. There's 2 hours beforehand, no problem solving, and 1 hour before bed, there's no technology.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I have heard it, but I couldn't remember it.
And I mean, that was the one that I knew. I've heard a couple different, little tweaks and stuff like that, and some other ones. But there was, somebody else said also change your light bulbs in your house to warm light, no fluorescence,
Absolutely. Or just turn them off.
Yeah, yeah. The best sleep you have is in pure black.
On that, he said, "God, it's like a bloody cave in here." But he's got used to it now, so we just turn the lights off. We might have a lamp on or something, but we just don't. I'm even going in the fridge, and which is why it's good not to eat at night. And looking in the fridge, and suddenly it's all that bright light in your brain.
Yeah,
that's really important. Dimming the lights, just turning them off, swapping your light bulbs to those. They say that the old light bulbs are okay. It's the LEDs that are the real problem because of the light, the frequencies and the light they're emitting. You can go to auctions sometimes and buy a box of old light bulbs from under someone's sink. They've done a house clearance, and I'm always saying to my mum, she loves auctions, buy light bulbs, buy those old light bulbs with the curly filaments in them, because we're not going to be able to get them anymore. I think for a while you could still buy them on Amazon, but I'm not sure if you can at the moment.
I think that's a good idea, though. Everything going, if we keep going backwards, I think that's the healthiest we're gonna get. If we think about it, it's everything that's brought to us now, or is kind of meant to flare up and fizz away. Nothing's meant to last and to help us at this point. And I hate saying that, but that's just kind of what it looks like.
Yeah.
But when I was looking through some of the stuff this one doctor was talking about, when you work out, your blood your blood pumps, right? So, but your blood's going to go to the parts where it is being utilized. He's like,
Yeah.
so if you're eating something, it realizes it has to go there. It has to help. He's like, so
Yeah.
if you're eating something and you're digesting, well, blood's going to start to go down towards that area to whatever it has to do to help that,
Yeah.
digest. But if you have an empty stomach, it is going to go to the parts of your body that actually need healing. Let's just
Yeah.
say you jammed your finger that day. Well, it's gonna go to the parts that it needs to actually begin to heal faster. But if you go to bed with an empty stomach, A, you're trying to digest, B, the blood isn't going to the actual spots it's supposed to be healing
Mm.
in your body because your body's turned off and recharging and healing in that time. And
Yeah.
it
You
was
should
very interesting to me when I heard
rest
that.
digest mode when you go to bed. That's what not you finished eating, you've done that, and now it's time to renew and get rid of the waste products from the day that you've just lived. That's really important, and that's why another reason as well is this is why you're not sleeping so well if you go to bed on a full stomach, because half the night your insulin's still up high and your body's digesting food when it should be. Melatonin should be high and you should be going into deep sleep, because I think most of the deep sleep happens early on in the night, but it doesn't happen if you're digesting. But yeah, I never realized that years ago. I just always ate my biggest meal in the evening and then went to bed on a full stomach. And and it's just how we, in our social lives, that's what we do, isn't it? Nowadays, I'm always trying to encourage people to meet for lunch, or if they want to meet, not meet for dinner, because I don't like
Yeah.
going out for dinners in the evening anymore. Used to. So I used to love going out, no problem. And then you've finished dinner and you have a coffee. That's a really bad idea.
Yeah. Agreed. I agree. Because I was that person where I didn't drink coffee for a while, but then I've realized that I could actually drink coffee and still go to bed. And they're like, how? And I was like, I don't know. I just
Some
can.
of
My
us
body's
can. Some people can. It's whether you've got a certain genetic makeup or not. I don't remember what the percentage is, but some people, Simon, my husband, can drink coffee and go to sleep, no problem. I don't think I can, but if you're one of those people that can, it doesn't make any difference to you. Coffee doesn't rev you up, then you can go to sleep and sleep perfectly well. But I just think you shouldn't eat into the evening. But when I first tried to do that, when I first tried to stop eating at 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon and then eat nothing and I found that really hard. It took a long time to develop that habit, but I'm really glad I can do it now. But then when I first tried to fast, I couldn't do that either. But when your body isn't fat adapted, when it's not adapted to utilize your fat for energy, and you're still a sugar burner, which is what most of us are, because we eat sugar all the time and that's what our bodies fuel us on, then it's very difficult when the sugar runs out, because it hasn't adapted to drawing on the fat for energy yet. So it makes it very difficult. So you feel like you're really hungry and you're going to die of hunger, but in fact you're not. You just got to go through that for a couple of weeks until you start to get more used to it. But it's hard. It's like we were saying earlier about habits. You've got to develop them, and you just have to keep doing it until you've built the new habit.
Yeah. Going to the other side of sleep. So say you go to sleep, and good sleep, bad sleep, whatever it may be. What's a healthy way? What's some of the healthier habits that you can do first waking up?
Oh gosh. Don't switch your phone on. Don't lie in bed, switch your phone on and start scrolling through your emails. Don't do that. I read Hal Elrod wrote a book called The Miracle Morning, and I read it 3 years ago, and it's excellent. If you haven't read it, you should really have a look at it. And he said then, that time in the morning when you first wake up, there's so much you can do in that time if you don't waste it. So I stopped looking at my phone, and I get out of bed and I get up and I have a herbal tea in the morning, and then I do yoga for 20 minutes, half an hour every day. And I've been doing that now for almost 3 years since I read that book. Well, I didn't think I had time to fit yoga into my life. I wanted to do it, but I never got around to it. You go to a class and it's busy and it's the wrong time of day and there's loads of other people. It's not a relaxing experience. And then I started doing it at home. And again, Simon said, well, I'm not getting up at 5:30 to do yoga, but he did. And so we do yoga every morning. So a much better way to start the day is to, and we don't put the electric lights on, because in the mornings now where we live, it's dark in the morning when we get up. So we put, a lamp might go on so we can just see what we're doing, get dressed, put the kettle on, feed the cats. They're always making a lot of noise. And then do the yoga. And it's just so that you're waking up doing something really positive with the beginning of the day. And then we'll have coffee when we finish yoga. So that's a real treat, because I only have that coffee first thing in the morning. I don't drink it the rest of the day. And then breakfast sometime after that. But the morning then becomes the whole thing's useful, and it's a positive experience. And it's not, I think the worst thing you can do is wake up and start scrolling your phone as soon as you get up, and it's just a moronic activity, and we all do it. We all get dragged into it. And the last thing you do before you go to sleep is you've got your phone and you're just checking all your socials, and you just leave it, turn it off, and break away from it is such a positive thing to do. My daughter and her husband in London, they hardly use their phones at the weekend. They try to detox from tech at the weekends, because we're on it all the time, aren't we?
We really are. We've made it
today actually about, it's something to do with so I've made the colors on my phone very dingy, so people look at my phone and like, what's wrong with your phone? It's got terrible colors. I've done the settings so it's not quite so bright, but it's to do with the blue sky that we see when we look at that phone screen. It's bright, and it gives us this dopamine hit in the brain, and it makes it so addictive. And we just look at them all the time. We can't not look at them. You see people out in restaurants and sitting around a table, all at a restaurant together, all on their phones. Or worse than that is when you see families and the kids are on the iPads and the parents are on their phones. I just think, wow, what did they come out for?
What's the point?
What was the occasion? They could have done that at home.
We went to Aruba last year, me and a bunch of friends, celebrating their 5th anniversary, and I was sitting across from my buddy, and his wife was sitting next to me, and we were sitting there, and I looked at him and he looked at me, and there's always a rule, especially with them. And I love the rule because he's the only one that's ever said it to me. And he's like, when we eat, there's no phones. And I agree, and because it's supposed to be the time where we laugh, we enjoy, we have a good time, we share stories, right? Like that's the time to communicate. Yeah. And I look over, and there's a man and a woman together, and I mean, they're young, they're in their 50s, and they're just heads down in their phones. And I counted 3 words that were said.
That without even thinking about what, there's no consciousness about the food they're eating even. They're just...
No. No, really, there isn't. You're not tasting it either, because you don't even know what it tastes. You can't tell me what it tastes like.
Yeah. And you're supposed to chew your food properly and be mindful about eating, and it's just not happening.
And that's yeah. And I said to my buddy, I was like, hey, do you know how many words they said? He's like, no. He's like, I knew that they were on their phones. I said 3 words. And it was one just offering somebody else if they wanted to have some, and the other person offering, and that was it. And he's like, you know why we do this, right? I said, yeah, I know why we have a rule, whether it's at your house, at my house, or whatever it is. The phones are away. That's what it is. It's not there.
Yeah. And
it takes away social communication too. It's just that communication, that connection. And you wonder why mental health is down, right?
Yeah. Oh gosh, definitely. And but it's so many things. It's just, I just think that there's so much in the food that we're eating that isn't good for us, and nobody's giving it a thought. I mean, we don't watch much TV. We watch maybe something for an hour in the evening, and we try and find a good drama to watch. And every drama you watch, there's the typical thing is the kids are they're eating breakfast. It's breakfast cereal, and I think, God, people still eat breakfast cereal. They still give that to their kids, like dessert for breakfast. And that's what I grew up on. I grew up on big bowls of cereal with the sugar spread all over, because that's what we all did. But I still fed my kids cereal, but I used to buy the healthy ones, and I'd scour the packets to find the lowest sugar ones. Now I just know that all of it turns into sugar. It's not just the added sugars, it's all of the starches turn into sugar in the body. But I only learned that a few years ago, and that was a revelation. It's like, what, bread turns into sugar? Rice turns into sugar? Yeah. But I remember going to school and being starving by morning break. So then you start snacking, then you start looking for chocolate or whatever you can get from the canteen at morning break, or you start eating your lunch. I used to take a packed lunch and I'd start eating that at break time because I was so hungry all the time. So, but people are so hungry, but they just don't eat properly. And when I have clients sit in front of me and say, well, for snacks, for healthy snacks, I say, but you don't need snacks. If you eat the right food at your meal, at your 2 meals, that you're going to end up just eating twice a day, because that's all humans, adults really need to do, is eat twice a day. You shouldn't have to eat outside those meals. You should be so satisfied and satiated with the good quality food you're eating, not expensive food, just good quality, just real food. So, a can of mackerel or sardines rather than a cheeseburger with a big bun, or a chicken packet of chicken nuggets out the freezer. Just real food. Choose things that have had minimal processing, and you won't need to eat between meals. You won't need healthy snacks and berries and seeds and Greek yogurt. You won't need any of that, because you're just going to eat real food. But it's people don't realize this. They don't realize how far away we are from how we evolved and what we were designed to eat.
What we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Yes.
And you talk about stabilizing blood sugar levels, prioritizing protein and fat over carbs.
Yeah.
And there's different ways of, like, when people, like you said before, when people think fat, they think, oh my gosh,
that was so demonized from Ansel Keys onwards. Ansel Keys was the father of the cholesterol theory of heart disease, nice American chap, and he came up with this theory, and the medical profession ran with it, and they're still pushing it out. They're still pushing out this theory that saturated fat is bad and reduce it, and we should reduce our cholesterol, or we can not reducing it fast enough, we'll give them drugs to do that. And it's just it's so wrong. So yeah, that's how I educate people, is we want the saturated fats. What we don't want is the polyunsaturated, crappy, industrially chemically produced seed oils. They're so far from seeds you can't even imagine. You don't want that poison in your body. What you need is some butter, or some lard, or some real food that your body recognizes as food and can actually do something with. But yeah, people are still very afraid of fat to this day. Here we are we're in 2026, and we're still scared of fat. We're still every day somebody says, either a comment or a client says something to me, and I say, look, don't fear the fat, eat it, because it's satiating, it's making the food taste delicious. Oh yeah, but it's high fat. And the number of times I go to a friend's house and I open the fridge and there's skimmed milk in there, and I'm just like, God, you're still drinking skimmed milk? Do you know how much sugar's in that? Oh, they add sugar to it. No, they don't add the sugar. They take the fat out, which means there's more of the milk sugar in there. But these are intelligent people, but it's hard to get that point across, because we've been fed the wrong information for so long. And it's like they know it's wrong. Even Ansel Keys on his deathbed, no, but way before that one, he'd lived, I think, till he was 100. But when he was 90, or 91, he wrote a public letter to some big body in America and said, I was wrong. We don't want to be focusing on the fats. It's not correct. And they didn't want to know, because there's too much. There's too much to unwind out of that. There's too much money at stake. Statins are the most profitable drug in the world, or they were at one stage. I don't know if they still are the most profitable, but they don't. Yeah, it's
it's so much to take in, because people don't really understand where, what to believe, when to believe, or I'll say the conspiracy theory of why would they make us believe that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and because if you dare go down that rabbit hole, if you dare go down that rabbit, A, I will say this, if you do go down that rabbit hole, you'll be informed much more than you've ever been. But B, it is a hard pill to swallow,
Mm. Yeah.
to realize that you do have to change a lot of things around. You do have to, if you want to be healthy.
And people are afraid. They're afraid
Yes.
of dying because nobody wants to die. Well, most of us don't want to die. It's the only guaranteed thing that's going to happen to us, but most of us don't want to get to that point too quickly. So they just, when a doctor tells them something, they just believe them. And I went to my doctor for some blood tests, and she said, "Oh yes, your cholesterol's very high. I must send you for, this is here before Christmas, send you for a scan on." They scan the carotid veins to see how much plaque you've got in them. So I was like, all right, then let's go and do this scan and let's see how much plaque I've got. And this doctor, who did this procedure, scanned, and he said, if you have plaque, oh yes, you have very high cholesterol. If you have plaque, you will have to take the pills. And I said, well, we'll see. I'm not taking any pills. Well, and if you've got that, if you've got the plaque, and he scans my veins, and you can see them on the screen, and they're just black. There's nothing. He said, you have the cleanest veins I've ever seen. You don't need to come back for 10 years. And then he looked at the notes from the doctor again and said, oh yes, but your cholesterol is very, very high. You must come back next year. And I just thought, oh my gosh, they don't calculate the numbers correctly. They don't look at it through the correct lens. They just worry about that number's high, let's bring it down. But I can see, having had the conversation with him, and I asked him a few questions. I said, but there's a lot of money in these drugs, isn't there? There's a lot of money. And he said, I don't make any more money if you take the drugs or not. And I said, I know you don't personally, but somebody does. But asking him these kind of questions, I said, wait a minute, they brought the numbers down, didn't they? It used to be over, what is my number? Okay, so it used to be double that was the threshold. And then they brought it down. Oh, don't worry about that. He just dismissed everything I had to say, but couldn't get me out of his office fast enough.
I bet you he couldn't.
My husband said, I bet he's not had anybody grill him like that. But I can understand, having been in that, because I don't often go to the doctor. I only had to go to the doctor for the blood test for insurance or something, or to renew my residency card or something. And it was just like, God, and now you're telling me this nonsense. This is why I don't go to the doctor. But you can understand why people who are grossly overweight and their heart's feeling terrible, and they're getting palpitations, and they can't sleep, and everything is going to crap. You can understand why they are scared, and why the doctor says, yes, what we need to do, so you take these pills. You can understand. I can understand it, because they're ill-educated around health, and they just don't want to die, so they're scared, so they do it. And so I spend my whole working life teaching people how not to be scared, and how to what actually is the case, and what they can do themselves to make things better, because that's really empowering, to give people the tools to realize that, well, listen, if you just take the sugar out first off and start bringing your insulin levels down, bringing your blood sugar down, so you're not spiking all day long, you won't get those hunger crashes. You won't need to eat the donuts. You won't need to snack all the time, and it's just unwinding out of where people have got to. And they don't usually wake up to it till for most people, it's in their 50s or 60s, because before then it doesn't hurt bad enough. They just get on with it. Not obviously in every case. Lots of people get sick before, but generally my typical client is 60. Sometimes more often it's women. They're so sick of being overweight. They can't fix anything anymore. Everything hurts. Their joints ache. They've got migraines. They can't sleep. Everything is going wrong, and they just feel dreadful. They've got no energy. No energy is the biggest one. If you've got no energy, nothing. If you're not making enough energy, nothing's working at all, is it, in the body? So, and then they're just like, I just want to feel better, and I give them a plan. And I start working with them, and it's so rewarding that within 2 or 3 weeks, they're sitting in front of me going, I can't believe how good I'm feeling. I'm feeling so energetic, and my knees stopped hurting, and and I'm not getting the acid reflux, and it's just all the things. But you know, it changes very quickly when you put the right inputs in, and it's never too late either. I've had some really old clients who they're still making changes. They're still turning things around in their 70s. In fact, my dad is 90. And he brought his blood pressure down, and just by eating the way I told him to eat. He and my mum, they're still together. They don't have horses anymore. And he still plays. My dad's 90. He was 90 last summer. He still plays golf and walks around the course, pulling. You know, I think his cart is motorized, but it's not one of the ones you get in and drive around the course. You walk, but his trolley's motorized, and he teaches the kids on a Saturday morning. Teaches the kids golf. I think that's fantastic. I think that's what we should all be aiming for. I don't want to ever have anybody have to wipe my bum, help me up out of a chair, help me get dressed. And I did some caring back at about 10 years ago, just for a short spell before I really got the furniture business going. I thought, okay, I could fit a caring. I can do a bit of that around my horse. I can still have time to ride the horse in daylight. And I couldn't believe how sick people were. It was where you go into people's homes and assist them. They still live at home, but they have someone come in a couple of times a day to help them with food, help them get dressed, help them, you know, bath and so on. I couldn't believe how sick these people were. And they weren't even that old, most of these people. It was such a wake up to me to think, God, my parents were doing really well. At that point, my dad was 80, but, you know, now he's 90, and my parents and my in-laws, they all live independently. They all live still in their houses, and they look after themselves. And that's where we should all be headed. That's what we should be aiming for. And if, you know, it isn't ever too late, but the earlier you get onto that bandwagon, the more chance you've got of getting to that point and living your life. And like my granddad did, my dad's father just dropped off his perch. He was sitting in his, not literally, he was sitting in his armchair of an evening, couple of friends around, he had a little whiskey every night, drinking his whiskey. And they only knew he'd died because he spilled his whiskey, and he just had a massive heart attack and died. And the other three, his wife and the two friends, carried on chatting and didn't, oh gosh, John, oh Dad, oh he's died. But, you know, that's how I want to go. Just quickly and painlessly at the end like that. Just one day your clock stops ticking, and that's it. But we can do that if we learn how to look after ourselves when there's still time to do that. And I think the earlier you start, the better. But you try telling a 30-year-old that they should stop eating pizza and drinking beer, they just most of them aren't interested. They have the best will in the world. My 24-year-old, he understands about health. He's really interested in it, but he still eats all the wrong stuff as well. But he'll get there. He's interested, and he wants to know this stuff. He wants to be healthy. So
I think it's also very being conscious of what your body's telling you, right? And actually listening to it. So,
yeah.
You know, some people say, if you were to ask, hey, do you know where most of your pain is? And some people will say your back, you're this, you're that. But when I was in therapy, you know, one of my therapists actually told me about how to body scan. And I learned how to do that. And I said, there's a lot more pain in my body than I thought. She's like, yeah, because you ignore it.
Yeah.
She's like, are you a person that usually just fights through pain? I said, absolutely. Like, I just, you know, and she's like, why is that? I said, because it's who cares? Yeah. It's the who cares momentum, you know, including myself, of saying like who cares? Just keep going. But that mentality came from a bad mentality of suck it up. You're a man. Who cares? And you're not paying attention to your body at that point, because your body's screaming to be healed. Your body is screaming for the right foods. Your body is screaming for the right kind of water, which we'll get into in a moment, because I know you have some takes on that. You know? And we're not giving it to it.
Yeah. You know? I know. And your body's always less trying to let you know. And what do people do? They just cover those symptoms up with a pill or a medication of some description, or just ignore it. And then, oh, great, it's better. Doesn't hurt anymore.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'll say this. I wanna go back to something we were talking about before about I know we were talking about the foods and such and everything. We're gonna go down a quick rabbit hole in a moment, and I think this is a perfect segue to lead down it. But have you heard about back in the 1950s and 60s with the FDA and the sugar companies? Have you ever heard about that? About the bribes?
No.
So in the 1950s and the 1960s, the FDA and the sugar industry were involved in a significant scandal where the Sugar Research Foundation paid scientists to downplay the role of sugar in causing coronary heart disease. This
Yes,
manipulation
yes,
of
I did hear about
yeah,
that. It
this
literally
was
this week,
mhm.
in a lecture I was listening to, that was mentioned. Yeah,
And
I didn't know about it before.
it is the wildest thing because that's how you keep the pharmaceutical companies up here. If enough
Mhm.
people are sick, then enough pills have to be distributed. Why? Because enough people go to the doctors to look for a symptom rather than something that you and I are just discussing right now
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
right ways to do this. So it yes, it can be woo-woo to some people and oh, you're going off course and you're crazy for thinking that. But if a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more keep being exposed, then the only other answer are the things that you provide, Emma. You know what I mean? You provide the right way of living, you provide the right
yeah.
way of thinking and how to fix your body.
And I'm currently in I'm taking a course with a chap called Morley Robbins, who I interviewed before Christmas. I'd never come across him before. I listened to him on a podcast and I really made my ears prick up. He's like, the things he was saying, I just thought, gosh, I do that. And I'm still promoting that. And you're saying that's totally wrong. And so I looked into him more and then I interviewed him and we sat like this for a couple of hours and it was just fascinating. And I joined his course. We've just done week 2 and it's really, really in depth. And he believes that minerals are the foundation of everything and an ancestral diet. And he says stop doing all these things, start doing all these things, and the whole thing is called the root cause protocol, because the root cause, you've got to get to the root of what's causing it in the first place. And it's so fascinating. It's the stuff I'm learning, and it will, I'm at the end of it, I will have a certification to be a root cause protocol. They don't call them practitioners. They don't call them counselors, consultant, to be a consultant, but it will just add in to what I'm already doing because most of it I already believe and I'm already promoting. It was just the additional pieces. Because yeah, and I lost my thread there. I can't remember what you said, something that made me think to tell you that, but it's just, he's always coming up against, he wholeheartedly believes, in the whole that there's a big conspiracy to put us all down and to keep us all under, and whilst I think he's not wrong, I also think I can get too embroiled in that, and then I won't be able to do the positive things that I am doing. So I don't worry about it too much because I can't change that, but I can change this. So I concentrate on the bits I can improve for people.
I will say this, and now I'll admit that I have been down those rabbit holes, and it's negative when you stay there, right? But
Mm,
I also do believe that it is imperative to understand the information of what we're being fed,
yeah,
um, and not to stay there, right? It's like, okay, I got the information,
yeah,
and I think you've done a really good job of understanding that kind of information and then saying, okay, that's great. We're not going to stay there. How do we fix it?
yeah.
Right? Like,
Let's do this instead.
yeah. Because if we stay like, look, everybody likes a sad song, but you can't listen to a sad song every day. You're going to be a sad person, right? So
No.
so it's all
Yeah,
right to
he'll
listen to it
say
once.
if someone tells you it's black, you can just assume it's white.
Yeah.
And just or look, he's always encouraging us to look behind the curtain, like in the Wizard of Oz. Look behind the curtain. What's really going on? Who's got a vested interest in this? People are always saying, "Oh yes, but such and such. There's a study," and you say, "Who funded that study? Where did that study come from?" Because I don't think that's good what they're saying there. So hang on, let's have a think about this. Oh, it was funded, whether it's that red meat is bad and we're all going to get cancer and die if we eat red meat. Well, hang on a minute, who funded that? It's always thinking about whose interest, who's got, and knowing that usually it's not our best interest at heart. It's always as Dr. Sarah Myhill always says, follow the money. Yeah, just follow the money, and then it leads to you to the answer that you knew in the first place, but it assures you of it, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, it does. And not for nothing, if you do follow the money of the big names, I think we all know, right? Those are the names that you can always see how much money was funded towards X or towards Z. And guess what? That last name is always going to be attached to it, or that company is always going to be attached to that big number of funding it. And that's okay, right? I'm not saying it's okay, but it's okay because we've understood. We know, and now we know that we can move on and be like, well, I don't want to go that direction. I will go this direction because it's healthier, because it's better for us.
It's shocking when you realize that something like, I did it in a video last year and I can't remember the numbers, but it was something like there's 8, it's probably even less by now, big food companies, and that's it. They've bought up all the little food companies of all of them. They all get eventually the little family names and the farm run things and the little startups. They all get bought up, and so they're just owned. Maybe it's not even 8 anymore. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not very up on the current affairs and the news.
That's okay.
But Coca-Cola's right up there. PepsiCo's another one. Those big companies, they own all of the other companies. So I just think, I just don't want to eat any of their food. So it's not food, it's just chemicals. I don't want to put that in my body. And I encourage people to question whether or not they really need that in their bodies, because you probably find you actually don't.
No, I mean, half of the meats and chickens and stuff now are bleached, if you really want to look at it. And more
chicken is so that we're told that white meat's healthier than red meat. I just think chicken, most of it is nothing but health, nothing anywhere near healthy.
No. And there's
it's awful to think that's just what the lives those poor animals have.
It's not a life. It's not a life at all.
I can understand why people become vegan and become vegetarian, but because it's just diabolical the way that the livestock's treated. But it's not the right diet for us, unfortunately. Otherwise, I wouldn't eat meat either. But I know it's not going to serve me to be vegetarian or vegan, so I don't do it. I've done it in the past, but we do need the protein and we need the fat. So it's how we evolved.
it is. It just is. And I want to take you down another spot that opened up something. We've discussed this before in one of our pre-podcast interviews, and it was something that you and I kind of we went down, we agreed on it. And I'm going to start off with the 2015. I don't know if we discussed this specifically, but it was an add-on too. But the 2015 TED Talk of Bill Gates, and I don't know if you've heard about this, but he really told us that we were overpopulated. And when he told us that we were overpopulated, you know how you can say not a phrase, but you can talk about something, and the longer the conversation goes, the longer people forget of the first phrase that you actually said. And at the end of it, he says, and that's how we're going to stop that. Referring to that's how we're going to stop reproducing as people. And I was like, hold on a second, because in the beginning of this, he said we have way too many people on Earth. And then at the end of this, he said that's how we're going to stop growth.
Right.
Wait, what? And he spoke of a pandemic. The next big war would be a pandemic. Okay, whatever, right? But then there were vaccines that were thrown in. And there's been a lot of different things that have happened with these vaccines. And there's been a lot of different things. Look, I don't know what's in it. I don't want to say that I do. But I can see people that are very close to me that have been affected. I chose not to take it. I don't want to say it was easy for other people not to take it. They were forced. By certain reigns of work and job security. And I understand that. But that's one of those names that we were discussing before. One of the bigger names that have the influence in order to do X, Y, and Z, to push money towards whatever it may be. And he's one of the people behind of, pushing synthetic food as well. Now it's just like, and it's like, what are we doing? Like, we're trusting somebody that, yes, had a great idea with computers, which is great. Hey, not don't want to knock technology. Look what we're doing right now. You know what I mean? You're in Spain, and and I'm in the States.
Yeah.
But at the same time, should somebody with that type of who knows how to do technology be inserted with pushing the information about how to how to bring the numbers down in population?
How did he ever get? He's just so rich. He has this voice and he has this power because he's got so much money. Yeah, he wasn't a health person to begin with, and he has a foundation, and some people still believe he's doing good for the world.
Yeah.
I think he's one of India's most hated, most wanted men now because of the polio epidemic over there.
I believe so.
Just it kind of, obviously the guy must have a big target on his back, but I guess he's got good security. But
I would imagine so. I could only imagine. But with that, what I wanted to go down was the different things that that you talk about, right? Having the right food, having the right this, having the right that. Now, and trying to keep your body in a very stabilized condition as you get older, and putting the right things inside of your body gets harder, because there are vaccines that are pushed to be like, hey, well, you don't want to hurt these people next to you, right? You want to get the booster, you want to get this, you want to get that. And on top of, we've discussed the things that are in the air. Even if you want to grow your own food, what is being sprayed inside of the air that's trickling down onto your own food that's being grown?
Well, the big one is glyphosate, isn't it? Roundup, that's been in our environment. Is it 40 something years now? They've been spraying that on just like everything that grows. So the animals are eating it. It's in the water supply. It's in the air. It's in parts of the world where it was never embraced. They never started using it in France. They didn't outlaw it, but they didn't uniformly use it like they do in the UK, like they do in the States. And yet they this was going back a few years. They tested the urine of a selection of French people, and they all had Roundup in their urine. They were all testing positive for Roundup because it's in the environment. And I think that is just, it's just taking the minerals we really need, like the magnesium in the soil. It's just chelating it out at such a rate. That's what we're up against. We're up against this poison in our environment. And so you can choose to eat the organic food, and you can, if you're lucky enough to be able to afford to eat real food and eat the good stuff and make those choices, you're still up against it. Yeah, but with God knows what's being sprayed in the clouds to make it rain, or whatever they're doing, I don't know. And the Roundup, it's just, it's very difficult. It's really hard. And I think that's because people so often will say, well, my grandparents ate whatever they wanted and they lived till they were 102. And my granddad smoked and drank whiskey every day, and he didn't need to worry about. Yeah, he didn't have all this poison in his environment either. Unfortunately, that's what we're faced with, and that's what we have to try and navigate around. Is it's tough, and I'm, my daughter, my eldest, they've been trying to get pregnant for a while. It hasn't happened yet. They haven't gone down the road yet of fertility treatment, but she knows a number of women her age in their 30s just not getting pregnant. Well, what's that all about? Why are people finding it so difficult to get pregnant, or so difficult to have babies that don't have autism, or aren't born with conditions that make their life really challenging?
Yeah.
It's just, autism's gone through the roof. We watched Rain Man the other night.
Such a great movie. Such a great movie.
But when the nurse at the doctor's surgery says he's artistic, no, he's autistic, says Tom Cruise. But
Yeah.
nobody knew what autism was in the 60s. And yet now, well, no, it wasn't the 60s, was it? That must be the 80s. But nobody really knew what it was. It was so rare.
Yeah.
It was something that once in a while they'd all have been an autistic person. If they were like Rain Man, they could do amazing, they'd have some amazing skill, but they couldn't function on a normal level. There are so many people who are suffering from autism now. Well, where did that come from? Why has that happened all of a sudden? Because it is all of a sudden in terms of history, isn't it? It's not, it wasn't happening 100 years ago. It didn't. Yeah, it's and that's, again, if you dwell on it too much, it can be really depressing and worrying and affect your mental health.
I do think that there is a certain aspect, because some of this stuff that we talk about, you know it, I know it, right? But some of the other people that listen to it for the first time would be like, wait, what?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but after you get past that, wait, what? Realize that there is another step, that it's like, hey, now that you know that, look, there's an answer to it.
Go and investigate it. We have this thing called the internet. It's amazing. We can all talk to each other, and there's billions of pieces of information, and you are entitled to go and read them. And yet I still speak to people in my own family who will say to me, I prefer to listen to my doctor. He went to college for 7 years, rather than you. What do you know? It's not. He went to college for 7 years and was spoon-fed an itinerary, an agenda that works for him in his job. He doesn't know about nutrition because they don't really cover it. That's why when you go to the doctor, they never say, so tell me what you're eating. It never comes up. They never ask you that question. And to me, that is the first question. What are you eating? What's the stress that you might be under? What's happened in your life in the past that we need to talk about, that maybe you've forgotten or you've buried? Or what water do you put in your water? Do you just drink tap? What do you brush your teeth with? It's all of those questions, because people don't, like you say, they don't think about it. No, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't put stuff in toothpaste that harms us. Really?
And to your point, I actually tried to have a almost like a holistic doctor, right? I don't go to the doctors much either. If something really bad goes wrong, fine. Or I go once a year to make sure levels are good. Everything's hey, this looks a little high. They never asked me to come back because I've already told them.
Question those levels.
They're
testing.
Because
check measuring those levels, because
she will ask me. She says, "Well, what do you take?" Or the last doctor that I had to explain to her. She's like, "So what direction do you want to go?" And I said, "What do you mean?" She's like, "I want to make sure that my clients are taken care of." Now, she said there's a difference between me taking care of somebody that doesn't know anything, and she's like, and then there's something else about me actually knowing that you have a certain pattern, or if there's something wrong with that pattern, I will say, hey, I'll give you advice. And she's like, so what do you want to do? She's like, you have this level here of whatever. And I said, okay, well, I said, I want to go with mushroom extracts. I have mushroom extracts. And she goes, what are those?
Sorry.
She didn't know what it was. Now, I'm not going to say that's a bad thing, right? But at the same point, if you're a doctor, shouldn't you know the original way on how to heal somebody?
Shouldn't you know all of the things that are out there?
Everything, right? I don't, to an extent.
Whether you believe in it or not, shouldn't you have a rounded knowledge of all of these things?
Yeah. And I gave her, she's like, I'm going to write down all the stuff that you take. I said, okay, cool. So I gave her, I said, turkey tail, cordyceps, lion's mane, chaga, and I think there's one other, it's a daily thing I take, and reishi. I take reishi mushroom.
Yeah.
And she's like, you take it. She's like, these are all pills. I said, no. I said, they want me to take like two like things of it, droplets. I said, but I only take half. Half of one each day. I said, because really, there's always a money grab. If you take 2 a day, you're going to spend a lot more money, But anything you continuously put in your body, even at a low gauge of it,
Yeah.
will have an effect. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So even a drop falling on cement is going to end up having an indent inside of that cement every day.
Yeah.
So I take that every day, or I'll take NAD plus from time to time. And, and she looked into it, came back a year later. She's like, I did some research on your stuff. She's like, I really like this stuff. And
great. Well, there's a doctor who is thinking outside the box. Oh, was she the holistic doctor, or was she a regular doctor?
She was a regular doctor. I lost my holistic doctor because they no longer took my insurance.
Oh, yeah.
And then this one, she left, and now I have another new doctor. So I'm like, okay.
How old are you?
Huh?
How old are you?
40.
Okay. It's because when you get to in your 50s and you go to the doctor and they say, well, what medication are you on? And you say, oh, I'm not. No, what do you take? I don't take anything. That's another surprise to them, because it's so unusual for people to get to older and get to middle age and not be taking anything. My mum is 78, and when she says that to the doctor, they're disbelief. She'll go to the nurse for whatever. She gets some blood pressure checked or something. What medication? I don't take anything. And she's really unusual, to be 78 and not taking anything. But yeah, but it's when you find a doctor who actually does say, well, that's great, I've looked into it. And there are some fantastic doctors out there.
Yeah, there are. Absolutely.
Looking for another way. There's a Dr. David Unwin who's in the UK. He's in the north of the UK. He saved the NHS, the National Health Service, tens of thousands, because he said to his diabetic patients, okay, I can put you on the pills, or you can follow my diet plan and lower your blood sugar naturally, and we'll reverse your insulin resistance that way. And I think, to a man, every patient always says, oh, let me try the diet first, doctor. And he saved them so much money, because these people get better and they no longer have diabetes just because they've changed their diet. And he's done a whole series of infographics. And they're posted. You can download them on the internet. Look up Dr. David Unwin, not Onion. And it's their pictures, and they show you in a small bowl of rice equivalent teaspoons of sugar, in an apple equivalent teaspoons of sugar, in a piece of 2 slices of white bread equivalent. And it's just like astonishing when you realize what that represents to your body, in terms of, because your body's turning it straight into sugar. My neighbors are having a massive party, and they're all getting very raucous downstairs.
I'm on my way. I heard that. I heard that across seas, that I'm ready to catch on a flight.
Started off, I looked out the window earlier because they've got a big table and they're feasting, and they started off with calsots. It's calsot season, and calsots are like they're like small leeks. They're like a cross between a leek and an onion. So they're about that kind of size, and they're cooked in, they wrap them in newspaper and they bake them in the oven, and they're really nice, like charcoal, sort of cooked over charcoal. And then they dip them in this sauce, and you have to wear a big bib because it's really messy. They dip them in this kind of red sauce, this special calsot sauce, and then they eat them. You eat them whole. They're all down there eating calsots. I think we've moved on from calsots now. I think that's and they've moved. Calsots is just the starter, and then they go on to the main course. But they're obviously, the party's going on. They're having a great time out there.
Are you joining after the podcast?
No, we weren't invited.
Okay, that's all right.
They're very friendly neighbours, but we aren't. This is looks like it's a whole load of Spanish friends they've got over. So no, it's we're not going. But it reminded me, wow, it's calsot season. I love them. They make a Romanesque sauce. That's what it is. So you can obviously make it at home without any of the things you don't want in your sauce, and it's really delicious.
That actually sounds pretty good. And the char is actually really good for your stomach.
Yeah. Well,
and a lot of people don't understand that. They'll be like, oh, well, it's burnt. Be like, you have no idea. The burnt stuff is actually really good for you.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of stuff people don't understand.
I mean, that's why we're here, right? This is why we do this. This is to throw out the information to people so that they can understand exactly how it is.
Yeah, but people have to want to know, because most people don't want to know. So when I say to friends who are taking statins, for example, why? What do you know what they do to your body? And do you I've got to take them because I'm listening to my doctor, I'm going to have a heart attack otherwise. Have you ever considered you might want to get rid of your belly and do that by changing your diet? And then you wouldn't need the statins. But unless people want to know, you can't force people to know the information. They have to come to it because they're ready to come to it, and it's what they want to do. And fortunately, because we have the internet, we can have these conversations, and it's becoming, I just feel like it's growing. There's the knowledge sharing and the ability of people to realize, and the numbers of people getting on board with, because they're disillusioned. And I think people have come to realize that our great leaders don't necessarily have our best interests at heart. We always, historically, your parents and our grandparents believed that the bank manager was a good guy. He would look after your money. The doctor would look after you. He was there when you were born, and he'll see you out this world. I think people have realized that perhaps it's not quite like that. It's not quite how they were led to believe it was.
Yeah, not unless they're getting a piece of the pie, And sadly enough, like, whatever happened to just helping somebody because it was the right thing. That's your profession. I get it, but if you saw somebody on the side of the road every day struggling, could you walk by them every single day? It's really hard to do. I'll tell you that. If you don't have a conscience, then maybe. But I'll tell you what, I still give money to the same person I gave money to if I saw them yesterday. So it's if they need it.
I'm very sheltered from that here because Andorra's a little private country with a favorable tax position. There are no homeless people here. You just don't see people begging on the street because there aren't any beggars here. There's only 100,000 people or somewhere around that, and most of them are here because it's a favorable tax position. It's a 10% tax, and it's a really nice place to live. But I go back to London and I just have to have a pocket of change and it breaks my heart because everywhere I look, there's somebody struggling or begging, and Simon would be like, "No, come on, you don't keep giving all your money to people." But it's just awful. I just can't bear it. Even if I think, well, even if they just got a sandwich or something. Or a hot coffee, and it made them, or I stopped and talked to somebody for a moment, and you give someone a hug because people are so desperate, and it's so, that breaks my heart. It's it's just awful, isn't it? Just when you see that all the time, and I don't have to see it on a daily basis here, but
I will say this though. I mean, the big thing is, and this is what I believe in, me personally, this is my thought process, is that God sees it all. He knows where your heart is. He knows, whether you believe it or you don't, that's just my personal is, he sees what you're doing, and it's not by the good deeds that you do, but it's ingrained in you to feel a certain way, to have empathy for somebody, to want to go help somebody, right? Because there's some people that don't feel that at all. So it's great to know that there are people out there be like, I know, but what if they just had a sandwich? What if they just had a cup of coffee to keep them warm? What if they just something, right? I'm the same way. So it's good to know, and God sees all of that. He's just like, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you're helping your fellow brother and sister through this journey we call life, right?
So with that, you can feel so helpless that you can't help everybody, and there's so much misery out there, and all I can do is give you, a tenner or whatever it is. But at least, you've had empathy with a fellow human, and you've made it tiny but part of that. Even if that person goes off and spends that money on drugs, who am I to decide what he spends his money on? Who am I to say, put that away, you should pop that into your pension?
And by the way, you never know who's watching you give money to somebody else. Maybe they needed a reminder that I should help somebody else out too, because it could be a transaction between you and somebody else, but there's always somebody on this. Like, I'm very attentive to the people around me, right? Like, I can watch who comes in the door, out a door. I know all the exits of everywhere. I'm just wired that way, right? But if I see somebody help somebody, it's almost just like in my head, I'm like, oh, we still have good people. This is good. And
Yeah.
I was able to see that. So I like to think that there's other people like me that see things. And sometimes it's a reminder of like, you know what, I should get back on my horse and help people, or I should, and I really do believe that everything means something. So if you want to give those $5 or $10.
And it's so easy, isn't it, with so much bad news to think that everything's into crap. It's just the world's a terrible place. Everybody's bad. But it's so wonderful to be reminded of people's kindness, and that there are still so many. There's probably way more kind people than there are bad people. To be really bad, I don't think there's, and people who are really bad, they've often had awful things done to them. They wouldn't have been like that if they hadn't had the experiences that brought them to being like that. But there's still so many good people out there, and you have to focus on that too, because again, that comes back to the news. It's so bad. There's so much bad news and misery, and like it's just we're fed all this sadness all the time that
We are.
Makes you feel like, God, it's just hopeless. I can't fix all that. Well, what's the point? Which is an awful way to be.
No, but you're right.
Bad.
You're absolutely right. There's a sense of, like we said before, knowing it, right? Okay, you know it. We know how to move on with knowing that, okay, that's there. But then you have people like yourself who have your YouTube channel, who have your, you know what I mean? Hey, you don't have to stay there, right? You have, you have videos on, sardines. You have, on a slow roasted aromatic crispy chicken. You have all of these different videos that are out there on how to help. And by the way, your videos are they're mesmerizing because you do so many different things while you're doing it. You have your dog involved. You're walking up a ski slope, but yet you can still understand what you're saying. So you get a good view along with, really good information.
Good views.
They are. You have some really good mountain views in some of those videos.
They're such a beautiful place. And today was the most glorious. I should have videoed today, but I think it's like it again tomorrow. It's the most glorious blue sky. And we've had so much snow this winter. God, coming back to the cloud seeding. God, it snowed and snowed. Apparently, there's been more snow than they've had since the 90s. And there was a lot of snow when we arrived here 4 years ago, and then nothing much. It's been quite sparse, and they've had to manufacture snow all through the season to keep the skiing going. This year, it's felt like it snowed nearly every day in January, right through into February. And I haven't skied at all this year. I've kind of fallen out of love with it a bit because I see so many injuries, and I just think I can't afford to not be able to run up my stairs. I don't have a lift, and we live on the top floor, so I just don't. I want to be able to run up the stairs. I want to be able to walk my dog every day. I don't want to break my knee or my back or something awful. Seemingly nearly all of our friends have been injured over the last 3 or 4 years with skiing accidents, often not their fault too. So. But it's been fantastic for the ski resorts. But today was so glorious, and it's just so pretty because you get the contrast of the white mountaintops and the blue sky, and we get a lot of good sunshine here as well. But we do. You get those days where the sky is just covered in stripes from the planes, and then the next day it rains. And I was thinking about it earlier in the winter that. So do they do that all through the winter as well? So that's why we've had so much snow, because it's been kind of like, oh, no snow. There's been no snow. So it's global warming. They've been talking about it for the last 3 years. And suddenly this year, it's just like, oh, this year was all right. And yeah, I've spoken to people over there in the States who said, we're supposed to have snow and we've had nothing. In the places where it usually snows where you are, or in the middle of, the country where they normally have so much snow, they say, we've just had, it's been cold and windy, but just a sprinkling, nothing. So it's shifting weather patterns with all this interference is my theory, as well as whatever it's sprinkling down onto the earth. But
I'll tell you what, we've gotten probably about 2 feet of snow here, but in Montana, where a few of my friends live, they I got a call. Hey, can you give us our winter back? What? You're like,
that was it. Montana's in the middle more, is it?
yeah, I mean, they can get
Yeah.
as low as 20 below, or I mean, degrees, and
Yeah.
what is it? 0. You go by Celsius,
Well,
right?
we go by Celsius, but so I haven't got a thermometer near me. I think isn't 33 Fahrenheit
32.
1 degree? Is that 1 degree or 32?
Yeah, that's 1 degree. Yep, because the 0 is 32, which is the freezing point.
So yeah, so we usually have. So this morning it was 1 degree or half a degree when I looked at the thermometer. So like I guess 32 below because it was nearly freezing. But some days, it goes down to -5. It hasn't been that cold this winter, but God, we've had so much snow. But then in the summer, it goes up to 30. So it's a lovely climate. It's much better than the UK, where we get a lot of heavy, heavy cloud and a lot of rain, very damp. And they rarely see the sun, and people are really fed up with it because they're just not seeing the sun anymore. It's, you get the occasional day where it's sunny, and then it's just dreadful and just heavy, low grey cloud, not necessarily raining, just heavy and grey and miserable. Of course, it brings everybody's mood down as well.
Yeah.
But no, we're lucky with the weather here. We get sort of Spanish weather, but we're up in the mountains, so it's cold, colder and not as hot in the summer. But hardly any mosquitoes, which is brilliant.
Yeah, it is brilliant.
Few, but not many. You might get one. And I think they've probably hitchhiked in on someone from Spain and France.
Well, I mean, how are you enjoying the Olympics over there?
I haven't really been watching it.
No, I've watched a little bit. I do like the competition. The competition is fun. I have watched a little bit. It's quite interesting. It only comes every 2 years, though.
Is it still happening?
As far as I know, it is. It might be coming towards the end, or it might just have ended, possibly. But
I'm too busy to watch Olympics. I'm too busy doing all those other things I've talked about.
yeah, you have a lot going on over there.
The editing and the filming and the deciding what I'm going to make the next video about, and all the clients, and there's quite a lot going on. This is why I don't have time to be watching the news, or I'm always somebody that's been into sport that I'm doing myself, but not that bothered about watching. Simon watches the rugby and the cricket, and he'll know what's going on with the Winter Olympics, but no, it's not it's not something I have much time for.
Well, you're doing
sports, sports people, amazing. I think anybody that can do anything to a high standard, incredible, very much in admiration, but I don't have time to watch it.
Yeah. I mean, you're doing a great thing on your own too, because it's helping everybody else. So, I mean, this episode alone will let people know exactly what they need to know, and about certain things, and hopefully you'll get some more people calling you, and you'll have some of these people that have listened to this on the phone with you. That's what we're looking for.
I mean, what's so lovely about the YouTube channel is that because it grew so quickly, and it's now 60-something thousand subscribers, you have such a fan base, and they're so warm and giving with their comments, and they're lovely, and I get very few nasty comments, which is a relief, because every time you get a nasty one, it's like, oh God, really? You actually could be bothered to come onto someone's channel and say that?
Yeah.
But there's very, very few, which I feel really lucky about. I'm really lucky that I don't get targeted too much with unkind comments, but the positive stuff, and knowing that, because most people aren't going to become my clients, there's just a handful that become your actual clients, and you work one-to-one with them, compared to the thousands that will watch things. To know that you've made a difference in someone's life, and they tell me, I've been doing what you said I've lost 40 pounds and I haven't got migraines anymore, and my husband's done this, and we've come off our medication, we knew statins weren't right and we stopped taking it. And it's just like, oh God, that's great. That's really great, because it's making a difference. And it's just information, isn't it? It's so empowering to have information, and it's just having somebody that you believe enough to try it and do it, and then it does start to work, and then you do more of it, and then you tell other people, and then they've improved their lives, and the more of that goes on, surely that's the positive stuff, isn't it? That's the stuff that we should all be doing to make everybody's lives better, make everybody feel a bit happier, and It's rewarding.
It really is. It definitely is. I think we've all been through a small little state of not feeling good at one point or what have you, and then when we find information that can make that better for us, we want to give it to other people. We want other people to feel the joy, the goodness of
Yeah,
how to get out of certain situations. Again, on this journey that we call life, and because we found out a little bit of how to do that, so we want to pass it on. We want to pay it forward, and
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's one of the biggest things in life that we could do is pay it forward to the people that don't know.
Yeah, and there's so many of them that haven't. People get just so busy living life and just surviving and making enough to pay the rent and the mortgage or whatever it is, and bring up the kids, and then on one day they wake up and they're so sick because they forgot to notice or look after themselves, and it's giving them the information that to turn that situation around. It's not too late. It's never too late. Your body will always try to get back into a state of equilibrium, a state of homeostasis. It wants to be in balance. Just get out the way and give it the right conditions, and it will do that. And it's really great to be able to give people that power that they can do that for themselves. They don't need someone else to give them pills, or they can just do it for themselves. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, everybody listening to this episode, you guys have the power to go to Emma Voysey Health on YouTube and go hit subscribe. Make sure you listen to all of the different videos. She has many, many videos there to give. And if you need extra help, okay, you go to emmavoyseyhealth.com/ was it sweet
Enough.
Sweet enough. Who would not like that?
Because you don't need the sugar, because you're sweet enough.
I love that. I love that. Yeah.
There's something we used to say when we were kids, when we started being grown up and drinking coffee. It was, would you like sugar with that? Oh, no, thanks. I'm sweet enough. So it came from, that's why I called it Sweet Enough. But that's what my course is called. And I work with people over 6 months now. I've realized 3 months was too fast. There was too much information to give them. So we stretched it out over 6 months, and everyone went, oh, that's better. Yeah, 6 months. Just meet every 2 weeks, and gives people more time to assimilate the habits and the information and put it into practice, and longer for me to see it working for them. So yeah,
I love it. I love it. So visit Emma on Facebook, online, also at Emma Voysey Health, and the website again, emmavoyseyhealth.com/sweet enough. And also you also have subscribe to her channel on Emma Voysey Health on YouTube, and Instagram at emma.voysey.health. I think I got all those right, didn't I? Like
Instagram's tiny. My Instagram got hacked, and I had loads of subscribers, and then I couldn't get back into it, and I lost interest because Instagram didn't want to help me get my channel back. So I think I have 150 subscribers on Instagram, but on YouTube, when people comment, I make a point of answering all the comments as far as I can, because I think that's important to you're not just shouting into the abyss. Someone's listening, and someone is able to give you an answer. And so if you send me a comment on YouTube, I will. And if I don't have time to answer it, I've always read them. So
that's awesome. Emma, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. I'm glad we can get some information out to people that want to make a change to their life and want to make a change to other people's lives as well, if they're not going to take the information. So I want to thank you for your time, because I always say that is one thing that could never be given back. Okay, so
true.
So I appreciate the time that you've given me today,
and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to your audience. That's
of course,
really
of course.
Good.
So if you guys haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel at IKONICAL Wear as well. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and also for Emma as well, Emma Voysey Health on YouTube. Make sure that you hit and like. But Emma, for today, I shall see you. I hope that your neighbors invite you over there, and you guys will have a
hang around in the fence.
Yeah. Just kind of linger.
Perhaps with a bottle. Okay.
Thank you so much, Emma, and we will speak soon. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks very much. Bye for now. Cheerio.